Alright, welcome back everyone dito sa latest episode ng FYI with yours truly, a voter education program, but nothing like your usual voter education. And that's why we have two special guests today. Itong mga, mga partners in crime throughout the years. Thank you very much, Sir Robin. It's finally, nahanap ka na. Mahirap ka maging guest. You're a very in-demand VIP.
No, hindi naman.
At of course, ito yung fashionista, sartorial, in town. Of course, the greatest ever. Kasama natin. Okay, marami tayong pag-usapan na seryoso, to be honest. Oh my goodness. As of this taping, obviously, nagkakaroon ng Group Hague ngayon sa Netherlands, Den Haag, ang mga pamilyang Duterte. It looks like even the vice president there, the president obviously was whisked away the other day. I think that's a technical term I can use. What are your first reactions? Was it surreal to see Duterte whisked away? Did you have a sense that baka may mga last-minute plot twist pa?
Yeah, actually, I was talking to Cleve and to other colleagues this morning. I was actually quite impressed at the implementation, execution of the warrant of arrest. I think it was seamless. It was well thought of, and that's why we were waiting for it for a long time. But this is what they were planning to do, and I think it was very well executed. Although I thought that the president and the palace could have done more in terms of narrative building and framing. Try to hijack the narrative and shape the perceptions of why this is an important and momentous moment in Philippine history.
Are you referring also to the press conference that came out?
Yeah, I thought, of course, it was late, but I thought that they could have said more about why it's important for the Filipinos, why this is a triumph of international law, why this is a source of justice for a lot of the individuals who were mercilessly killed during the Duterte administration, right? So maybe I was just looking for that type of rhetoric from Marcos, especially that the Duterte camp is using an equally strong narrative. So yun lang, I'm sure in the next few days there will be more statements from Marcos.
More refined messaging.
More refined messaging.
Right.
So, lalabas naman yan. Hinihintay ko lang. Oh.
Cleve, I want to go to you actually in between posting my own interviews and all. Nakita ko in tweet mo yesterday. I don't know, was it you who gave a C score or something like that? Not a very good score. We had a different guest who said it was boring. In a sense that this was a moment to rally the nation and to say this is a new chapter in Philippines. This is about rule of law. This is about victims and all. But at the same time, may problem ang government, diba? Because their own narrative has its own wrinkles in the sense that not long ago, this same administration was saying, no way we're not going to recognize the jurisdiction. And then the next thing you know, they're saying, oh, we're not going to welcome the investigators. I think one of the secretaries said, we're going to whisk away the investigators. And then next thing you know, they actually whisked away Duterte to The Hague. That's quite a big jump, right? So, credibly speaking, how do you think they could have worked around it from a strategic communication standpoint?
Well, I think it doesn't have to it doesn't have to be complicated in the sense na when I think about it, right? I was just personally, I just wanted a nightcap.
Yep.
We were all watching, we were all
or mic drop moment,
and then the plane took off. Then there's a press briefing in Malacanang. The president will be speaking, right? I just wanted to hear from the president, right, a clear message that this is a commitment to see through the process, right? And I know that will raise some issues on other priorities and kind of like the baggage of the Marcos administration. But at the end of the day, I think there needs to be a clear story from the administration because now that physically the body is going to be in Hague, right? Here in the Philippines, it will be about what is this story going to be about, right?
Let's talk about Cleve. I mean, obviously, none of us are legal luminaries here. We're gonna have legal luminaries and international law experts also on this show, on these episodes, to discuss the nitty-gritties. But for instance, one area of attack that we can see from the camp of the Duterte side was, like the guy was it like rendition? Like what the heck is going on, right? Like why was he not allowed to get back in the country, right? Those are the kind of arguments we're hearing, even from people who are not sympathetic to Duterte, that the legal circumstances at the very least was a little bit gray. At the same time, some people were saying, well, politically, actually, you should be thankful we avoided the political chaos. I mean, yesterday, just before going live with some folks, I heard people talking to, people who were supposed to organize another major event like what we saw in January, right? So I think everyone knows which groups I'm talking about. So biglang wala, everything is off the table. So in a way, you can say politically, actually, the president did not only something smart and sophisticated, but actually he saved the country a potentially disastrous situation. I mean, just look at South Korea. Their drama is not over, and that's a very well-developed, established democracy. God forbid the Philippines were in a way worse shape. So, again, I know we're not legal luminaries or experts here, but in terms of narrative, how do you think they should explain? Maybe that should be the explanation, right? We did it precisely because, we were feared for the worst. Or wala tayong magagawa, we have to comply.
Yeah, and I think that, we can always, you can always trust our lawyer friends to kind of like complicate and come up with debates about legalities. I mean, that's their professions.
Or spin it.
Kaya, di ba, the impeachment trial is tied with this discussion on what forthwith means, right?
Yeah.
So to me, as an ordinary Filipino, also as a political observer, to me, due process is being given your time to face the charges against you, being given the time to face that in a court. And that's what's going to happen to the ex-president, right? He will be given time to defend himself based on the charges against him in the court, right? And kaya sabi ko that's a good narrative, right? For the Marcos administration. The Marcoses are defending the right to due process, and due process means that he will have his time in that court, di ba? Kung saan siya may warrant of arrest. And I think
and unlike the victims who never had a chance of extrajudicial killing.
Exactly. And I know that yung mga allies and some of the supporters of ex-President Duterte saying na he should be his rights should be protected. Precisely and exactly. That's why he will be hindi naman po lahat ng mga kababayan natin ay madadala ng jet, diba?
Private jet, very shocked.
Exactly.
He looked like a billionaire.
Yeah. To me, pumapantay to dun sa status niya as an ex-president. This protects his fundamental rights, right? Na dapat sa korte ka, di ba? Kasi ano bang nangyayari sa mga dating presidente na nire-reject ng taong bayan, ng bayan nila, lalo na mga ex-dictator? They're hanged in public,
Gaddafi,
right?
Saddam,
They're hanged in public. I think this is this is already kind of like the best case scenario, and I also want to say na one of the things na realize ko last night, watching everything as it unfolds, na aside from it was really a sophisticated and smart move on the part of the Marcos administration, this is what it feels pala to win. And I think it's a very important acknowledgement because for the longest time, human rights advocates, Democrats, broadly the opposition in this country has been marginalized since Duterte electoral victory in 2016, right? And we've never had like really a material kind of like symbolic win, diba? Among all of our causes. Ang dami niyan diba?
But this is more than symbolic, right? But speaking of it, I mean, one drama was like, oh, he's so old. Suddenly, in Hong Kong, he didn't look so old. He looked very energized. And then next thing you know, there's an oxygen, blah, 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 na hindi pala dikit. Ang sabi ko, simple lang. Papunta na siya sa first world. Netherlands has one of the best welfare systems and best penitentiary systems. I know they import even prisoners from Norway. Kasi sa Norway, naubusan sila ng coastline mansions for their prisoners. You know how the Scandinavians do this. But I want to talk about this. There is a China angle here, right? Because one of the big questions is, why did he even return? Bakit pa siya bumalik? Nandyan na nga siya. And to be honest, I got personally kind of affected by this because I was supposed to go to China after weeks, and the next thing they rejected visa when they invited me for Boao Forum, their highest level forum. So a part of me was thinking maybe things are really sensitive in China right now. And there is a theory on one side that maybe China was also a bit lukewarm on him, that he felt maybe at the end of the day he might not get what he really wants, the conditions. And then he said, let's roll the dice and I'm just going to do Duterte my way back. What is our understanding of that aspect? Because as we speak, China is making statements saying hindi dapat politicize yung ICC. So it's kind of a patron, but not a full-in 100% patron.
I think the Duterte administration has overestimated the support that China can give them. And it's consistent from the investments, to many things, right? And this is just the latest demonstration of that assumption that they have. In fact, this is the narrative that they're trying to peddle. But the truth is, Xi Jinping in China and the Communist Party is not really willing to stake their reputation and risk some of their social and political capital to President Duterte, right? So, yeah, so
because it's useless basically to them. I mean, in terms of political utility.
Hindi naman sa useless, but actually to be in the first place, baka hindi talaga siya importante to begin with, right? And then marami tayong concessions under Duterte, and then China continually and repeatedly coerced us in the South China Sea, right? So all of these things. So basically, this is a disrespect to Duterte, and I don't know what's new, really.
Yun nga, I think that's a story that we'll still have to properly investigate. That angle is a very important, like what really happened with China, because I remember when we were breaking this down live, we were getting reports that his former NICA chief was with him, meaning the very people that were at the forefront of dealing with China, the highest intelligence security services, kasama ni Digong sa Hong Kong. So that's why I said, is he gonna go Assad? Remember Assad? He was practically useless also towards the end, but yet Moscow still provided him the sanctuary. But obviously, Moscow is in a different situation. They're quite isolated in ways China are not. But some are saying maybe at the end of the day, this will be his Moscow, right? I don't know, Shenzhen or Beijing or Zhongnanhai, wherever. So some are saying maybe there are things we don't know, that behind the scenes there have been some negotiations. In fact, as we speak, we're waiting if Donald Trump or the Trump administration will also say anything about this. Because last time I checked, they were angry at ICC, threatened Karim Khan among others because of the Netanyahu case. I even saw Duterte folks tagging POTUS and Elon Musk to help. Like sabi ko, napaka-hypocriton yung tao. Akala ko anti-US kayo. MAGA na pala sila ngayon. And it just showed how pathetically out of touch they were. Clearly, as you're saying, superpowers have core interests. And at the end of the day, there are no friendships. National interest comes first. They'll say you're the best friend of this, best friend of that. At the end of the day, Trump will protect his national interest. And if this case, I don't think Trump is worried about a pro-China candidate in Den Haag. Like, he couldn't care less. I mean, who are you, right? More like, who you, diba? But do you think it matters what also other big players say? US, I mean, obviously Europe will support this, but what about other big players? Do you think it matters?
I think this is a big win for the ICC, and
of course.
The international community will definitely commend the ICC for doing this, successfully doing this, coordinating with the Philippines, and of course, there's a lot of political concessions that came with it, because there are also equally unsuccessful attempts of the ICC to persecute and prosecute world leaders that have transgressions in human rights. So, yeah, I think this is something to be celebrated. Of course, the reaction of Trump is something to be waited on. We don't know how much he respects international.
Or Marco Rubio at the very least.
But I think majority of the international community will commend the ICC and perhaps even the Marcos administration for making sure that this happens.
Cleve, in the latter part of our discussion, I want to go a little bit. I want to adjust aperture and look at a little bit more long term. This is a historic moment. I think the Dutertes are facing really an existential crisis. The fact that the vice president had to also go away, and I mean, she's facing the risk of impeachment. I mean, our understanding is this could accelerate the impeachment, right? I mean, our understanding is that not only that, the Nograleses are now in a very good position. Everyone is smelling blood. I mean, right? That's the thing. I mean, the Dutertes played this very dirty and very aggressive throughout the years. And now that they're really in a position of weakness, I think everyone, I won't call them vultures because, in comparison, I mean, but this is an interesting time. But it also opens up possibilities, right? I mean, one of the open discussions we're having right now, actually a repeated discussion, is baka yung 2028 ay maging 1992 elections. Not in an exact term, but in terms of openness and competitiveness. Na actually, si Miriam Defensor yata nanalo. Or if Ramos, we believe the numbers, just above 21%, right? Had, Imelda and Coanco teamed up, panalo na sila. Malacanang na sila by 1992. So do you think this also opens up the possibility? So therefore, what does this mean? And I think we should be open. We, as academics, we're naturally more progressive, right? does this open the space for a more reformist, progressive alternative?
Yeah, and in fact, I will just parang adjust a bit the lens, no?
Yeah.
I don't think parang naturally there will be a possibility that might open up, right? I think our duty now is to make sure that that possibility will be made available as we move towards 2028, right? Kaya I think that feeling of this is a win, and this has been, and this is a win that we haven't seen for progressives for quite a long time. Marcos, Duterte admin, and then Marcos. It's very important because remember, parang after the 2022 elections and this historic mobilization then for the pink movement, if you talk to the people who participated in that, they feel na there's defeat, burnout, nakakapagod, di ba? So, I hope this is a source now of renewed strength and renewed inspiration that, okay, kailangan nating think ahead, right? And the good thing is that if you look at the dynamics of elections in this country, we Filipinos, mga kababayan natin, we'll have a winner.
We're champion of the strong.
Exactly,
I always say,
diba?
yeah.
And this is that opportunity, right, to show to ating mga kababayan, the progressives are winners as well, and they have an agenda. They can win, and kind of like be back on track, no, to making that elections in 2028. Of course, on and off cam, we've always been discussing about this, that there needs to be a really cohesive, coherent effort, right, in building this. Kasi nga, sabi ko, baka
and there's a vacuum of leadership also.
Baka the mistake is to think that this will open up, right? Baka really the framing that it's very important is to think that now we have a job to do to make
so
that,
basically, Cleve, what you're saying is that the objective conditions are there, but there has to be a subjective exercise of agency. Otherwise, history doesn't bend towards justice on its own. You have to make it bend.
Yes, and this is di ba, if we want to be, wag naman natin masyadong mabore yung ating mga viewers, that we want to be more academic about
this
it.
is a voter education. Go ahead, Boras.
This is classic political opportunities na scholarship, right?
Right.
That objective conditions, di ba, yung nakikita natin sa political structure, political opportunities, has to be met with some level of agency and some level of action for it to really happen, right? And ang ganda ng mga nababasa ko din on political parties na dahil ngayon na democratic retreat, democratic decline, and we are also experiencing that in the country, right? Sabi nila, what is the role of the political party now? And even more importantly, what is the role of a progressive political party? And the role is dahil nga may acknowledgement na may decline in democratic spaces, no, to force open that democratic space. It's not a given, it's not assumed. There has to be a party that will force that opening and make sure that that's open. And I think that
yung locomotive na yan. Robin, you and
Sasabayan ko lang yan.
Yes.
We're waiting for Marcos to come up with a strong narrative in the next few days. But at the same time, I feel just because of your point on forcing open that opportunity, I think the progressives should take this opportunity as well to come up with an equally strong narrative, right? Something compelling, something persuasive.
Or make their stance clear.
And make their stance clear.
Because I'm not sure some of them have made their... Akbayan, yes. They were very clear. This is not about politics. But I'm not sure about everyone.
Correct. Like sila Bam, sila Kiko, even Lenny. This is an opportunity for them to talk about themselves and talk about the progressive agenda, especially in 2025 and 2028. But so far, actually, parang siguro pinag-iisipan pa nila in the next few days. This is something that I'm also looking at.
It's more like a must, right? Because I don't think it goes down well if someone with the name of an Aquino or someone who positions herself potentially as the next leader. Like for me, I think there's a sense of urgency and also kind of a moral imperative to be almost Kantian about it.
Correct.
Now, this is the last part of our discussion, and I think this, for me, honestly, I feel this is what energizes me the most, which perfectly jives with what we were talking about, objective conditions and subjective exercise of agency. I remember, Robin, we were discussing about En Marche of Macron back in 2017, and even earlier when he was running. Who's this guy, 37-year-old? Like, how dare he challenge? And boom, he won. And boom, next thing, he won even re-election. Yeah, everyone can say things about Macron and too much chest hair and too much, yeah, okay, whatever. I get it. And Macron sometimes could be very annoying, Jupiter, and guess. But the guy has achieved something, right? He radicalized the center in a country whereby the center and left had effectively collapsed and the far right was coming in. But even more interesting than Macron was closer to us in Thailand.
Yeah.
Move forward, future forward.
Correct.
Well, Pita would have been the prime minister if actually there were a real democracy, which they exposed it, right? It was not. But, man, they won the biggest votes and all.
Right.
So, I want to
Cleve
ask
knows
you.
more about that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'll talk to Cleve more in terms of, but in terms of, do you think we need a kind of a Macron-like figure? I mean, yes, you already have a Vico Soto type figure and all of that, but it cannot be just one or all, diba? I mean, the reason why I mentioned En Marche and Future Forward is that actually, kahit natatanggalan sila ng leader, go ka pa rin sila. Nakailang leader na, nag-rename pa nga sila eh.
Yeah.
That means they have a deep bench. And yun yung nakakainis sa akin sa Pilipinas. Isa lang bida parate. No, you have to build a whole movement team and a whole bench. Hindi lang pwede umasa ka lang kay Lenny, umasa ka lang kay, I don't know, Vico or whatever. You have to have a deep bench so that nagro-rotate yan no matter what happens and go yan. So I just want to get your sensibility on that before we go to the real Thailand populist expert guy here.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the names of the 2025 elections, these are, old-timers. These are people who we already know, who've already served the Senate. Presidential candidates, vice presidential candidates, Soto, Ping Lacson, Manny Pacquiao. They've already served, I think, a lot of time in public office. And there's definitely, an opportunity for, a younger voice to come
Camille
in.
Villar, bagong mukha.
May mga bagong mukha.
Ingat po sa biyahe. Nakita nyo, yung mag-reply si Digong, ingat po sa biyahe. Sorry, I couldn't help the Camille Villar one. I'm sorry. Crush ko kasi siya eh.
May mga bata, pero yung iba, parang hindi pa ganun kaganda yung credentials compared with Vico. I think there was a time that we wanted Isko, mas bata siya, kaso I think he didn't do well. Tumanda siya, he didn't do well in 2022. He's trying to make a comeback. And yeah, so point ko lang, there's definitely a space for this.
Yeah.
But I think so far, maybe also because of our system, we're not able to accommodate those voices.
What do you mean? Because of the dynastic concept?
Yes, number one. So kahit magaling, sasabihin na dynasty. But I mean, objectively, mali naman talaga yung dynasty.
Yeah.
It's something that we really need to talk about. But and so yung mga reputation nahahaluan ng mga ganyang baggage, right? So like yung kay Camille Villar, and those other individuals. And so far, wala akong nakikitang people who could actually become that. There was a time, maybe 10 years ago, si Jesus Cudero, young, fresh, independent, he was supposed to run for office and, as president when he turned 40. Nasa 30s lang siya. He was one of the youngest pa before, di ba? Minority floor leader at 32 years old. So bata pa siya noon, and I think it galvanized a lot of people.
He's still young, right? I think the microblading yung mga Mike Velarde, ano niya. No, but I really like your point.
But if you look at if you look at the House of Representatives, I think they're trying to do that.
The young guns,
right? And
Gutierrez,
more than 50% of the House of Representatives is actually in their 30s.
Yes.
And this is something that we recorded a couple of months ago and a couple of years ago. But so far, I think wala pa yung talaga nag-stand out na tao na batang progressive person sa Congress. Kasi doon din nanggaling si Cheese, kaya ako kino-connect sa Congress.
Yeah.
Doon siya nanggaling and he had an opportunity to speak. Pero dito, wala pa akong nakikitang
I'll
really
put you on the
eloquent.
spot.
Yeah.
Is she's the example that should not be followed then? Or even Isko for that, right? Like, they had the potential. The objective attributes were there, but their subjective... okay, you can be polite.
I think that's a strong statement. I mean, there are good and bad things about Cheese and his political
including his
career.
fashion. Including his fashion.
I mean, if you find his fashion horrendous, but that's
No,
not a topic.
I'm saying nothing.
You should wear a suit, no? Siguro, hindi yung marunong
I'm more a Milan Fashion Week guy, not a Paris Fashion Week guy.
Baka kasi, baka idol niya si Zelensky, diba? So,
I'm not sure I see. Medyo Donald Trump na. Medyo hindi Zelensky ang dating niya sa akin. Medyo hindi nag-i-ikaw na. Tsaka, Si Ronald, let's not go. No,
Pero
but
titingnan mo yung impeachment court, marami
Okay.
doon na batang na-nominate
Yes.
as judges.
Right.
Congressman judges.
Luis Stroh will be at the very
So,
front. Yeah.
there's this guy from the One Rider, si Rod.
Right.
I listened to him. Parang okay naman pala. Abogado rin pala yun.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they will perform. I think the Quadcom gave them an opportunity to speak. Pero yung leaders din ng Quadcom tsaka yung mga committees na active, hindi rin mga bata eh. Puro deputy sila eh.
Yeah.
So ngayon na-elect sila as part of the impeachment, perhaps this is an opportunity for them to to rise above and show the nation what they
Well, there's a Sandro, there's a Ferdinand Marcos. But
We'll see, not that one.
Let's talk about that because I think Robin in his very polite diplomatic way laid out yung mga siguro entry barriers, complications, false alarms or like false hopes and false
10 years
dawns in
ago.
the past. Nevertheless, I mean, look at Thailand for heaven's sake. There's the Thaksin family, they're multi-billionaire oligarchs. Ulitin natin, okay. We can record that. Look at Thailand, for instance. Like, you have the Thaksin family, my goodness, multi-billion oligarchs, and a dozen other similar groups, yellow versus red. Then you have, some would call him the Mad King. I don't want to go that far. They're absolute monarch, a very peculiar character. He has also sons competing. There's the military, my goodness, which always has to get rid of their itch every few years and write a new constitution or at least launch a new coup. And yet, Thailand's per capita is below $10,000. So we're not talking about Norway or New Zealand. And yet, you had this future forward, move forward, whatever is the latest iteration. And despite losing a lot of their charismatic leaders, they keep on going and going, and therefore
It's a new leader, diba?
So yun nga eh. So
Bata rin.
Robin was very right to point out, we had these moments hindi nag-work or pwede mag-work, but it kind of worked in Thailand despite the ceiling, very low ceiling. Tayo kasi taas pa ng ceiling natin because we're still a competitive democracy. They're not. They're an electoral autocracy. Can you tell us the Thailand case, maybe to inspire our younger generation?
Yeah, I think yung pinaka I will build on what Robin has been talking about na we had some moments in the past, right? 2022 was also a moment that we could have built upon, right? And I think yung missing element, halimbawa, is the party. No, future forward, move
Correct.
forward is a party,
Yep.
right? And that means that
And a movement too.
yes, and
right?
that means that some of the things na pinag-usapan natin, paano make sure na merong next generation? Because party do not only run for elections, it's also a training ground for your next set of leaders, right? There's a clear succession plan.
Yeah.
You elect your. That's why I got to observe, move forward pa dati, and then future forward, Tonatorn, and then Pita, this past two elections in Thailand, and I think malaki yung role na not only as a party of discipline, meaning they're out to get votes and therefore they do it systematically, right? Parang lagi ko sinasabi nga na I would have wanted sana, ang wish ko nung 2022, the Robredo People's Councils, we're counting votes down to each communities, right? So we know how many we need, right? That's the discipline of a party.
Dapat meron.
Sabi nga ni former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi sa Democrats naman, long-time leader, sabi, tinatanong siya, anong secret to electoral success? Sabi niya, I know how to count, right? Kasi at the end of the day, medyo yung elections, medyo in a simplistic manner is a game of counting.
It's an arithmetic, yeah.
it's an arithmetic,
Game
right?
of addition, yeah.
But also, as I've said, aside from that party discipline, the other two things na what I love the most about Future Forward is, one is that they're data driven, right?
Analytics. Yeah.
There's really parang
Effort.
they know that this is the future, right? I know na sa progressives may mga debate tayo dyan. Maniniwala ba tayo sa survey? Maniniwala ba tayo sa analytics, right? But
actually, naniwala sila sa Google Analytics pero hindi sa legit survey. But
yeah,
I want to go there.
Yeah.
Kasi-
It's,
Sinisiraan.
diba, parang, when you think about it, there's a whole corporate industry paying billions of dollars into this
Yep,
because
exactly.
data now is the future, diba? Measuring things.
Data is oil. It's money.
It's not
yeah.
even the future nga. It's the present,
yeah.
right? So we also need to embrace that, I think, yung ganong data-driven na strategy. But also the other thing is that aside from data-driven is that we have to offer, I think, the politics of the future, no? Ezra Klein talks about the politics of abundance daw para daw matalo si Trump at saka si Elon. I think in similar terms, Future Forward offered, I think, one of the most progressive party manifesto in the region, in Southeast Asia, right? Pag tinignan yung kanilang mga promises, no, they're talking about how can we make internet as much as possible as free, as a human right, right? How can we give young parents, mga solo parents, no, more tax incentives, di ba?
Very Scandinavian almost,
Yes,
social
no?
democratic.
In short, the promise of democracy comes also with the promise that you know what will happen to our everyday lives under a more democratic system?
Yeah.
We will be prosperous, di ba? Your incomes will increase, you will feel more secure, di ba? Hindi mo kailangang endo ka kada 5 buwan, right? You can spend some time with your family on weekends because you have security of tenure, right? And the economy will grow because we lead stable lives, no? So I think also yung combination na yun na I think that also something that we need to figure out kasi I think mga kababayan natin, di ba? Sa katotohanan, yes, this is a very important milestone for Philippine politics that we will be able to demand accountability and justice from an ex-president na mass murderer, no? But also, what's next, right? Kasi at the end of the day, ang taas ng presyo ng bilihin, di ba? Right. mga kabataan natin are performing very poorly in schools, right? Our schools are actually are performing very poorly. Anong promises natin as a progressive political party, no, that will rival all of these challenges? So I think in all those combinations.
And of course, courage and patriotism, I mean, the level of tenacity those people are showing against all odds, I think should put us to shame whenever we say, oh, but Philippines, this and this and that. I said, you have no idea, you know, what Alexei Navalny had to deal with Russia, what these folks in Thailand, what certain women are dealing with in the Middle East against all odds. You could get raped and tortured for just standing up for your basic rights. Kaya sabi ko, can we stop just whining and saying it's all disinformation and all of that? We really have to up our game. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for this conversation. As you can see, marami pa tayong pwedeng pag-usapan. So hopefully this is just the beginning of a series of conversation. And as I said, what we want to happen here is not let me educate you. It's actually also meeting folks from across the country. So in the coming weeks and months, we hope to go across the country, meet influencer, thought leaders, academics and experts, LGU leaders, and young leaders across the country so that maybe we can learn something from them. Thank you very much, Robin, for that fantastic conversation. And thank you, Cleve, as always, for that great sartorial visual that inspired me. Oh, and by the way, thank you for fixing my back and all. Sorry, with the whole ADHD thing, I forget to fix that. But on a serious note, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. Again, as I always say, whenever you think Philippines is hopeless, remember, marami sa ating mga kabayan, they don't have the privileged platform voice, and they may not even have the passport to go away, right? So if you have that privilege, if you have that platform, stop whining, stop being cynical, and help out. And one way to help out is actually to research and research other best practices. And you don't have to go to Norway or New Zealand. We discussed, even the case of Thailand, how Thailand and neighboring Southeast Asian country could be an inspiration for a new progressive movement. Pink 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Salamat. This was the latest episode of FYI with yours truly, a voter education program.